There is a table in the most powerful space station in the known galaxy. It seats 8. It has never been used. Not once. Not in 300 years. Every soldier knows about it. Every commander. Every alien diplomat who has ever walked through those doors. They all know the rule. They all follow it without question. Stay away from that table. Do not look at it too long. Do not walk near it. And whatever you do not sit down. Because she sits there. The alien vampire woman. Ancient. Powerful. Terrifying. Nobody knows exactly how old she is. Some say 500 years. Some say 1,000. The oldest records on the station simply call her the one who remains. She has outlived 3 station commanders. She has watched entire civilizations rise and fall. She has never smiled. She has never spoken first. And she has never, not once, allowed anyone to share her space. Warriors with medals covering their chests walk the long way around just to avoid passing her table. Generals who have fought in 40 wars lower their eyes when she enters the room. Even the station's artificial intelligence speaks to her differently. Softer. More careful. Like it is afraid too. But here's the thing that will shock you. One day, all of that changed. Not because of a war. Not because of a treaty. Not because some brave hero decided to challenge her. It changed because of a rookie. A brand new human soldier. 22 years old. Fresh off the transport ship. Still wearing his new boots that had never touched alien soil. A young man from a small town in Ohio who had never even seen an alien up close before that morning. He sat down at her table. By accident. And what happened next? Nobody on that station will ever forget. Today, we are going to tell you the full story. We are going to take you inside that mess hall. We are going to show you who she really is, what she has been through, and why one clumsy, nervous, completely unaware rookie human managed to do what no decorated warrior in 3 centuries ever could. There are 3 things in this story that will genuinely surprise you. First, the real reason everyone was afraid of her was not what you think. Second, she had been waiting for someone to sit down. She just never believed it would actually happen. And third, the moment that Rookie sat down changed not just his life, but the future of an entire alliance between humans and one of the most powerful alien species in the galaxy. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Claude Sonnet 4.6. The alien vampire woman nobody dared approach, until one rookie changed everything. Hef-fi sci-fi story script, non-hef-fi channel. Hook. On-screen cue. Dark space background. Slow zoom into a crowded galactic mess hall. Eerie silence. One table sits completely empty. Whole idea. Time lapse of a busy cafeteria where one corner table remains untouched while everyone else fills every seat. There is a table in the most powerful space station in the known galaxy. It seats 8. It has never been used. Not once. Not in 300 years. Every soldier knows about it. Every commander. Every alien diplomat who has ever walked through those doors. They all know the rule. They all follow it without question. Stay away from that table. Do not look at it too long. Do not walk near it. And whatever you do not sit down. Because she sits there. The alien vampire woman. Ancient. Powerful. Terrifying. Nobody knows exactly how old she is. Some say 500 years. Some say 1,000. The oldest records on the station simply call her the one who remains. She has outlived 3 station commanders. She has watched entire civilizations rise and fall. She has never smiled. She has never spoken first. And she has never, not once, allowed anyone to share her space. Warriors with medals covering their chests walk the long way around, just to avoid passing her table. Generals who have fought in 40 wars lower their eyes when she enters the room. Even the station's artificial intelligence speaks to her differently. Softer. More careful. Like it is afraid too. But here is the thing that will shock you. One day, all of that changed. Not because of a war. Not because of a treaty. Not because some brave hero decided to challenge her. It changed because of a rookie. A brand new human soldier. 22 years old. Fresh off the transport ship. Still wearing his new boots that had never touched alien soil. A young man from a small town in Ohio who had never even seen an alien up close before that morning. He sat down at her table. By accident. And what happened next, nobody on that station will ever forget. Today we are going to tell you the full story. We are going to take you inside that mess hall. We are going to show you who she really is, what she has been through, and why one clumsy, nervous, completely unaware rookie human managed to do what no decorated warrior in 3 centuries ever could. There are 3 things in this story that will genuinely surprise you. First, the real reason everyone was afraid of her was not what you think. Second, she had been waiting for someone to sit down. She just never believed it would actually happen. And third, the moment that rookie sat down changed not just his life but the future of an entire alliance between humans and one of the most powerful alien species in the galaxy. Let me show you exactly how this happened. Part 1. On-screen cue, year 2387. Galactic Alliance Station Omega 7. Deep space. Whole idea. Wide shot of a massive space station orbiting a distant planet. Interior shots of long metallic corridors. Soldiers of different species walking in groups. His name was Ethan Cole. He was not special. Not yet. He was the kind of guy who tripped over his own feet during training. The kind of guy who forgot his access badge 3 times in the first week. The kind of guy the veterans laughed at, not cruelly, just the way older soldiers always laugh at the new ones who still have that wide-eyed look. That look that says they have no idea what they just walked into. Ethan had grown up in a small town called Millbrook, Ohio. Population 4,000. 1 gas station. 1 diner. A high school football team that had not won a game in 6 years. He had joined the Galactic Alliance military not because he was brave, or ambitious, or driven by some great destiny. He had joined because his older sister dared him to, and Ethan Cole had never once backed down from a dare in his entire life. That was the only remarkable thing about him. He did not back down. Not from dares, not from challenges, not from things that scared him. He just did not always realize he should be scared in the first place. That was the real problem. On his very first morning aboard Station Omega 7, Ethan woke up late. His bunk assignment had been entered wrong in the system, so he had spent the night in a storage corridor on a folded blanket. His uniform was wrinkled. His hair was a mess. He had not eaten since the transport ship, which had been 18 hours ago. His stomach was making sounds that he was pretty sure were audible to the alien soldier sleeping 3 bunks over. He needed food. Badly. He grabbed his tray and followed the signs to the main mess hall. Now, the main mess hall on Station Omega 7 was enormous. It could seat over 2,000 soldiers at once. It was loud and bright and smelled like 100 different kinds of food from 100 different worlds. There were beings with 4 arms eating something that glowed blue. There were tall, thin creatures with silver skin who seemed to eat nothing at all but sat together anyway. There were humans clustered in groups, talking loudly, laughing. The way humans always do when they are nervous and trying not to show it. Ethan loaded his tray. Scrambled eggs. Something that looked like toast but was slightly purple. A cup of coffee that the machine dispensed automatically when it scanned his human biology. He turned around and looked for a seat. The hall was packed. Every table was full. Groups of soldiers deep in conversation. Clusters of aliens who clearly did not want to be interrupted. Long tables where veterans sat shoulder to shoulder. The kind of unspoken arrangement that said, "This is our spot. Find your own." Ethan walked slowly, tray in hand, scanning the room. And then he saw it. A table in the far left corner. Empty. Completely empty. 8 chairs. Not a single person sitting down. Plenty of space. Clean surface. Perfect. Ethan did not think twice. He walked over, pulled out a chair, sat down, and started eating his purple toast. He was 3 bites in before he noticed her. She was sitting at the opposite end of the same table. He had not seen her when he sat down. She was very still, the kind of still that most living things are not capable of. The kind of still that makes you think for a moment that maybe you are looking at a statue, or a shadow, or something your tired brain invented. But she was real. She was unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. She was tall, even sitting down. Her skin was a deep, rich shade of dark red, almost the color of dried roses. Her hair was long and black and perfectly straight, falling past her shoulders like a curtain of silk. Her eyes, when she finally turned them toward him, were a pale, luminous silver. Not gray. Silver. Like two small moons had been placed inside her face. She had dark curved horns that rose from her temples, elegant and sharp. She had wings, folded tightly against her back, deep crimson with veins of black running through them like the pattern on a leaf. She wore silver armor that caught the light of the mess hall and threw it back in quiet flashes. She was, without question, the most striking being Ethan had ever seen in his life. She was also staring directly at him. Not with curiosity, not with surprise, with something that Ethan could only describe later as ancient patience. Like she had been waiting for something for a very long time and was not yet sure if this was it. Ethan, being Ethan, did the only thing that made sense to him. He nodded. "Morning," he said. "Sorry, is this seat taken?" "I mean, the other seats. I already sat down. I just meant, sorry, I'm new." She did not respond. She simply looked at him. Ethan looked back. Then he picked up his coffee and took a sip. Across the mess hall, 300 soldiers had gone completely silent. A veteran sergeant named Harlow, a woman who had served on Omega-7 for 11 years, had her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. Her eyes were wide. Her face had gone pale. "Is that kid?" the soldier next to her started. "Don't say it," Harlow whispered. "He's sitting at her table." "I said don't say it. He's just sitting there eating toast." Harlow set her fork down very carefully. "Someone needs to go get him." Nobody moved. Because here is the thing about Station Omega-7 that every veteran understood and every rookie eventually learned. There were rules on that station. Official rules, written in the Alliance Code of Conduct. And then there were the other rules, the ones nobody wrote down, the ones you learned by watching, by listening, by paying attention to which hallways the experienced soldiers avoided, and which tables they never sat at. The biggest unwritten rule on Omega-7 was simple. You do not approach Vera. That was her name. Vera. Though most soldiers did not even say it out loud. They called her the Vampire Woman, or the Winged One, or simply her. As in, did you hear what happened to the lieutenant who tried to talk to her last year? As in, make sure the new recruits know about her before they go to the mess hall. Vera was a Dravari, an ancient species, one of the oldest in the known galaxy. They were rare. Fewer than 2,000 Dravari existed across all of known space. They were powerful beyond what most species could measure. They fed on a form of bioenergy that they could draw from living beings. Not enough to harm, but enough to feel. Enough to sense emotions, memories, intentions. They could read a person the way humans read a book. And Vera was not just any Dravari. She was the last of her bloodline. The last of the Veyrath clan. A family that had once ruled an entire star system. A family that had been destroyed in a war 300 years ago. A war that Vera had survived alone. She had been on Omega-7 for 60 years. She served as a strategic advisor to the Alliance. Her knowledge of ancient star maps, forgotten civilizations, and deep space anomalies was unmatched. The Alliance needed her. They respected her. They feared her. And they left her alone. Because the last soldier who had tried to sit at her table, a decorated major with 20 years of service, had looked into her silver eyes for 3 seconds and walked directly to the medical bay. He had not spoken for 2 days. When he finally did speak, he said only one thing. "I saw everything she has lost." After that, nobody tried again. Until Ethan Cole from Millbrook, Ohio sat down with his purple toast and his bad hair and said morning like it was the most natural thing in the world. Vera looked at him for a long time. She had felt him the moment he entered the mess hall. She always felt humans. They were loud inside. Emotionally loud, the way young species always were. Full of noise and color and feeling. Most of the time it was overwhelming. Most of the time she kept her walls up, her energy contained, her presence reduced to something cold and distant, so that nobody would come close enough for her to feel them too strongly. But this one was different. Not because he was brave. He was not particularly brave. She could feel that clearly. His heart was beating fast. His hands were slightly unsteady. He was nervous. Genuinely nervous in the way that all new soldiers were nervous on their first day. But underneath the nervousness there was something else. Something she had not felt from another living being in a very long time. Openness. Pure, unguarded, completely unself-conscious openness. He was not performing. He was not trying to impress her. He was not afraid of her, not because he was brave, but because he simply did not know enough to be afraid yet. He had sat down because he was hungry, and there was an empty seat, and that was the entire extent of his decision-making process. He was, in the most complete sense of the word, genuine. Vera had lived for over 400 years. She had met warriors and kings and scientists and monsters. She had watched species destroy themselves and rebuild. She had seen the worst of what living beings could do to each other. She had not felt genuine in a very long time. She looked at the young human eating his purple toast. He looked back at her and gave a small, slightly awkward smile. And somewhere deep inside the ancient, armored, terrifying being that the entire station feared, something very small and very quiet shifted. She did not smile back. But she did not look away either. And for Vera, after 300 years of silence, that was everything. Word travels fast on a space station. By the time Ethan finished his breakfast and walked back to his bunk assignment, which had finally been corrected, thankfully the story had already spread through 3 decks. The new human kid sat at her table. He just sat right down. He talked to her. She didn't kill him. That last part was said with genuine surprise. Because while Vera had never actually killed anyone on the station, the legend had grown large enough over the decades that most soldiers half believed she might. The story of the major who had lost 2 days of speech had been told and retold so many times that in the current version, he had apparently been unconscious for a week and had woken up speaking a dead alien language. None of that was true. But fear has a way of growing stories. Ethan did not know any of this yet. He spent his first full day on Omega-7 in orientation. 6 hours of briefings, equipment assignments, protocol training, and a medical scan that took 45 minutes because the scanner kept flagging his unusually high caffeine levels as a potential biological anomaly. He met his unit, a squad of 8 soldiers from 4 different planets. His human squad mates were a woman named Torres from Texas, and a quiet, serious man named Briggs from London. His alien squad mates included a 4-armed Kethali named Grax, who communicated partly through color changes in his skin, and a small, fast-moving creature called Pip, who nobody could quite explain but who everyone seemed to like. His squad leader was Sergeant Harlow. The same Sergeant Harlow who had watched him sit at Vera's table with her fork frozen in midair. She pulled him aside after orientation. "Cole," she said. Her voice was flat and professional, the voice of someone who had learned to keep all emotion out of her tone through years of practice. "We need to talk about this morning." Ethan blinked. "The scanner thing? Because I can explain the caffeine, not the scanner." She looked at him steadily. "The table." "Oh." He paused. "Was I not supposed to sit there?" Harlow stared at him for a long moment. "You genuinely didn't know." "Know what?" She exhaled slowly. "That table belongs to Vera. The Dravery. The winged woman you sat next to this morning." "Oh, she seemed fine," Ethan said. "Quiet, but fine. She didn't say anything. I said good morning and she just kind of looked at me." "Is she okay?" "She seemed a little, I don't know. Lonely, maybe?" Harlow's expression did something complicated. "Lonely," she repeated. "Yeah. Like I don't know. She had this look. Like someone who's been sitting by themselves for a really long time and kind of stopped expecting anything different." He shrugged. "I've seen that look before. My grandma had it after my grandpa died. She'd sit at the kitchen table every morning and just look at the door, like she was waiting for someone who wasn't coming back. Harlow was quiet for a moment. Cole, she said finally, Vera is one of the most dangerous beings on this station. She is 400 years old. She is a Dravari, which means she can read your emotions, your memories, and your intentions just by being near you. The last person who tried to engage with her ended up in the medical bay. Ethan nodded slowly. Okay. But she didn't do anything to me. I know. So, is it okay if I sit there again tomorrow? Harlow opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Cole. She was there first, right? It's her table. I don't want to be rude. But if she didn't mind me being there, we don't know that she didn't mind. She didn't tell me to leave. She doesn't speak to people. She didn't have to speak. She could have just, I don't know, looked at me differently. She looked at me like she was thinking about something, not like she was angry. He paused. I'm pretty good at reading people. My mom always said I had a gift for it. Harlow looked at him for a long time. She had been on Omega-7 for 11 years. She had seen a lot of rookies come through. Some were brave, some were reckless, some were brilliant. Some washed out in the first month. She had never seen one quite like this. Fine, she said at last. But if she tells you to leave, you leave. Immediately. No questions, no goodbyes. You get up and you walk away. Of course, Ethan said, as if this were the most obvious thing in the world. And Cole? Yeah? Don't stare into her eyes for too long. He nodded seriously. Got it. Eye contact in moderation. Very normal social advice. Harlow watched him walk away and wondered, not for the first time, if the universe had a sense of humor. The next morning, Ethan went back to the mess hall. He loaded his tray. Eggs again. The purple toast, which he had decided he actually liked. Coffee. He walked to the corner table. Vera was already there. She was sitting in the same position as the day before. Same stillness, same silver eyes, same folded wings catching the light. Ethan sat down across from her. Morning, he said. She looked at him. He started eating. For 10 minutes, neither of them spoke. The mess hall around them had gone quiet again. That ripple of silence that spread out from their corner like a stone dropped in still water. Soldiers nudged each other, whispered, watched. Then Ethan said, "The purple toast is actually really good." "Do you know what it's made of?" I asked the food station AI, and it said something about Valorian grain, but I don't know what that is. Vera looked at him. "Valorian grain," she said. Her voice was low and smooth and precise, like each word had been chosen carefully from a very large collection. It was the voice of someone who did not speak often, and therefore spoke well. Ethan looked up. "Oh, you know it? It grows on the third moon of Valoria Prime. It has been cultivated for 6,000 years. The purple color comes from the mineral content of the soil." She paused. "It is considered a delicacy on 12 worlds." Ethan looked down at his toast with new respect. "Huh. I'm eating a 6,000-year-old delicacy. The grain is 6,000 years old as a crop. The toast is approximately 4 minutes old." Ethan laughed. It was a genuine laugh. Surprised and warm and completely unguarded. Vera looked at him with an expression that was very hard to read. Across the mess hall, Sergeant Harlow had stopped eating entirely. Torres leaned over to her. "Did she just make a joke?" Harlow said nothing. Briggs from London set down his fork very carefully. "I've been on this station for 2 years," he said quietly. "I have never heard her speak." "Neither has anyone else," Harlow said. "Not in 11 years." They all looked at the corner table, where Ethan Cole was now asking Vera about Valorian agriculture, and Vera, ancient, terrifying, untouchable Vera, was answering him. By the end of the second week, it had become a routine. Every morning, Ethan sat at Vera's table. Every morning, they talked. Not about anything important at first. Ethan asked questions. He was a natural asker of questions. The kind of person who genuinely wanted to know how things worked. and why things were the way they were. He asked about the food, about the station, about the different alien species he encountered in the corridors, about the stars visible from the observation deck. Vera answered, not always immediately. Sometimes she would look at him for a long moment before responding, as if she were deciding whether the question deserved an answer. But she always answered. And her answers were extraordinary, detailed, precise, filled with knowledge that came from 4 centuries of living and watching and remembering. She told him about the Kethali homeworld, where the sky was 3 different colors at once. She told him about the ancient trade routes that had connected 40 civilizations before the First Great War. She told him about stars that had died before humans had learned to write. Ethan listened to all of it with the same wide-eyed attention he gave to everything. He never seemed overwhelmed. He never seemed afraid. He asked follow-up questions. He made small jokes. He brought her coffee once. She did not drink it, but she looked at the cup for a long moment in a way that Ethan somehow understood meant something. The rest of the station watched all of this with a mixture of awe and complete bewilderment. Commander Voss, the station's commanding officer, a tall, gray-haired human woman with 30 years of service, called Harlow into her office at the end of the second week. Tell me about the rookie, she said. Harlow told her. Commander Voss listened without expression. When Harlow finished, the commander was quiet for a long moment. She's spoken to him every day? Every morning, ma'am. For the past 9 days. How long are these conversations? Anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour. Yesterday they were at the table for an hour and 20 minutes. He was late to his first training session. Voss looked out the window at the stars. In 30 years of service, I have never heard Vera speak to anyone voluntarily. Not once. I know, ma'am. What is it about him? Harlow thought about this. She had been thinking about it for 2 weeks. I think, she said slowly, it's because he doesn't know he's supposed to be afraid of her. And because of that, she can't feel fear from him. She can feel everything else. His curiosity, his openness, she paused, searching for the right word, his genuineness. He's not performing anything, he's just himself. Voss turned back from the window. And she responds to that. She responds to that. The commander nodded slowly. Keep an eye on it. But don't interfere. Understood. And Harlow? Ma'am? Make sure the boy knows what he's dealing with. Not to scare him, just make sure he understands. That evening, Harlow found Ethan in the training bay after hours, running drills on his own. He was not the most naturally gifted soldier. His reflexes were average. His aim was decent, but not exceptional. But he worked harder than anyone she had seen in years. He stayed late. He came in early, he asked questions, and then actually applied the answers. She sat down on a bench and waited for him to finish. When he finally stopped and grabbed his water, she said, I need to tell you something about Vera. He sat down. Okay. Do you know what happened to her people? He shook his head. Harlow told him. The Dravari had once been one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Ancient, wise, deeply connected to each other through a form of shared consciousness. They could feel each other's emotions across vast distances, like a web of living feeling that connected their entire species. It was their greatest strength. It was also what destroyed them. 312 years ago, a species called the Vorkai had developed a weapon specifically designed to target Dravari biology. A resonance pulse that traveled through their shared consciousness like a shockwave. When it was deployed, every Dravari in the galaxy felt it simultaneously. The pain was, by all accounts, unsurvivable. All but a handful died in seconds. Vera had survived because she had been in a shielded research vessel at the edge of known space, studying a deep space anomaly. The shielding had dampened the pulse just enough. She had felt it, felt every single one of her people die at once, felt the entire web of consciousness she had lived inside for 4 centuries simply go silent. But she had survived. She was the last of her bloodline, one of fewer than 20 Dravari who had survived across all of known space. And those 20 had scattered, each carrying the same wound, each dealing with it differently. Vera had come to Omega-7. She had never left. Ethan was quiet for a long time after Harlow finished. She felt all of them die, he said finally. At the same time. Yes. And she's been carrying that for 300 years. Yes. He was quiet again. Then he said that's why she sits alone. Yes, because being around people, feeling their emotions, it must be. He stopped. It must be like trying to listen to music after you've lost everyone you ever loved who used to sing with you. Harlow looked at him. She had not thought of it that way. But it was exactly right. Cole, she said, I'm not telling you this to scare you away from her. I'm telling you because you need to understand what you're doing. Every morning you sit at that table, you're giving her something she hasn't had in 300 years. Connection. Real, genuine, unguarded connection. She paused. That is not a small thing. That is not something you can start and then walk away from without consequences. Ethan looked at his hands for a moment. I'm not going to walk away, he said. You don't know that yet. You've known her for 2 weeks. I know. He looked up. But I'm not going to walk away. Harlow studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded once and stood up. Get some sleep, Cole. Training starts at 0500. She walked out of the training bay. And Ethan sat alone for a while thinking about a woman who had felt an entire world go silent inside her, and who had been sitting alone at a table for 300 years waiting, without even knowing she was waiting, for someone to simply sit down and say good morning. The alert came on a Tuesday. Ethan had been on Omega-7 for exactly 53 days. He was in the middle of his morning breakfast, purple toast, eggs, coffee, sitting across from Vera, who was in the middle of explaining the navigational principles of ancient Dravari star charts, when the yellow alert lights began to pulse through the mess hall. Every soldier in the room was on their feet in seconds. Vera did not move. She looked at Ethan. You should go, she said. What is it? He asked, already standing, tray forgotten. A Vorkai scout vessel, she said. Her voice was completely flat, completely controlled. But Ethan had spent 53 mornings learning to read the small things, the slight tension in her jaw, the way her wings shifted almost imperceptibly against her back. It has been detected at the edge of the sector. The Vorkai, the species that had killed her people. Ethan looked at her. Vera, go, she said. Do your duty. He went. The briefing room was packed. Commander Voss stood at the front, her face calm and hard. The holographic display showed a single vessel, small, fast, unmistakably Vorkai in design. It was not attacking. It was observing, sitting at the edge of sensor range, watching the station. This is a scout, Voss said. Standard Vorkai reconnaissance pattern. They are mapping our defenses. We do not engage unless they cross the boundary line. We monitor. We prepare. We wait. Ethan's squad was assigned to secondary defense, monitoring the lower docking bays in case the scout was a distraction for something else. It was not glamorous work. It was hours of watching empty corridors and checking sensor readings that showed nothing. But Ethan's mind was not on the corridors. He kept thinking about Vera, about the way her voice had gone flat when she said the word Vorkai, about the way her wings had shifted, about 300 years of carrying a silence where an entire species used to be. At hour 4 of the watch, Grax, his 4-armed Cathali squadmate, turned to him. Grax's skin had shifted to a pale, questioning blue. You are thinking about the Dravari woman, Grax said. It was not a question. Cathali were perceptive in their own way. Yeah, Ethan said. She will be feeling this strongly, Grax said. The Vorkai presence. Even at this distance, Dravari are sensitive to the biosignatures of species they have history with. History, Ethan said quietly. It is the polite word. Ethan was quiet for a moment. Is she going to be okay? Grax's skin shifted through several colors. A complex Cathali expression that Ethan had learned roughly translated to that as a question with no simple answer. She has survived 300 years of this, Grax said finally. She will survive today. Surviving and being okay aren't the same thing, Ethan said. Grax looked at him for a long moment. His skin settled into a warm, steady amber, the Catholic color for something like respect. No, he said, they are not. The Vorkai scout stayed at the boundary for 6 hours and then withdrew. No engagement. No incident. The alert was downgraded and then cancelled. Ethan went straight to the observation deck. He found Vera there. She was standing at the large viewport, looking out at the stars. Her wings were slightly extended, not fully open, but not folded tight either. Like she needed the space. Like she was breathing. Ethan walked over and stood beside her. He did not say anything. He just stood there. For a long time, neither of them spoke. They looked at the stars together. The station hummed quietly around them. Somewhere in the distance, a door opened and closed. Then Vera said, very quietly, I felt them. I know, Ethan said. Even at that distance, even after all this time, her voice was still controlled, still precise, but there was something underneath it now. Something old and heavy. I felt them the way you feel a scar. Not pain exactly, but the memory of pain. The shape of where something used to be. Ethan nodded slowly. My grandpa died when I was 12, he said. And for years after that, every time I walked into his kitchen he had this specific smell. Like coffee and wood shavings, I would feel it. Not grief exactly. Just the shape of where he used to be. Vera turned to look at him. That is, she paused. That is a very accurate description. You told me once that humans are emotionally loud, Ethan said. That we're overwhelming to be around. Yes. Am I? Is it hard? Being around me? She looked at him for a long moment. The silver eyes were unreadable in the way that deep water is unreadable. Not because there is nothing there, but because there is too much. No, she said finally. You are different. Different how? Most beings, when they are near me, feel fear, or awe, or the particular kind of discomfort that comes from being near something ancient and unknown. Those emotions are loud, sharp. They press against my awareness like noise. She paused. You feel open, curious, warm. It is like, she searched for the word. It is like standing near a fire after a very long time in the cold. It does not overwhelm. It simply is. Ethan looked at her. That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me, he said. Something moved in her expression. Not quite a smile, but the possibility of one. Do not let it go to your head, she said. And Ethan laughed again, that same warm, unguarded laugh. And this time, very quietly, so quietly that he almost missed it. Vera smiled. Just slightly, just for a moment. But it was real. The Vorkai did not stay gone. 3 weeks after the scout vessel withdrew, a formal communication arrived at Omega 7. It was addressed to the Alliance Council. It was written in the old diplomatic language, the formal tongue used when species wanted to say something important without technically declaring war. The Vorkai were requesting a summit. They wanted to negotiate a new boundary agreement. They claimed their scout had been a misunderstanding, a navigation error, they said, though nobody believed that. They wanted to meet on neutral ground. They wanted Alliance representatives present, and they specifically requested the presence of a Dravari advisor. The station went very quiet when that part was announced. Because there was only one Dravari on Omega 7. Commander Voss called Vera to her office. Ethan found out about it from Harlow, who found out from the commander's aide, who had overheard the conversation through a door that was not quite fully closed. Vera had refused. She had refused calmly, precisely, and completely. She had told Commander Voss that she would not sit in a room with the species that had murdered her people. She had told her that her presence at such a summit would not be diplomatic, it would be a provocation. She had told her that the Vorkai's request was not genuine, that they wanted a Dravari present not for diplomacy, but to demonstrate something. To show that they could summon one of the last survivors of the species they had nearly destroyed, and make her sit across a table from them. She had told Voss all of this in the same flat, controlled voice she used for everything. And then, she had gone back to her table. Ethan found her there that evening. The mess hall was mostly empty. The dinner rush had passed. The corner table was lit by the low evening lighting, warm and quiet. Vera sat with her hands folded on the table, looking at nothing. Ethan sat down. "I heard," he said. She looked at him. "You don't have to go," he said. "Nobody can make you go." "I know," she said, "but you're thinking about it." She was quiet for a moment. "I am thinking about what it means if I do not go. The Alliance needs this summit. The Vorkai have been expanding their territory for the past decade. If there is no agreement, if the boundary dispute escalates, there will be war. A war that will cost many lives." She paused. "I have watched enough wars. So you're thinking about going?" "I am thinking about what is right." She looked at him. "And I am thinking about what I am capable of." "What do you mean?" "I have not been in the same room as a Vorkai since—" She stopped. "Since the day I felt my people die. I do not know what I am capable of in that situation. I do not know if I can maintain control. I do not know if I can be what the Alliance needs me to be in that room." Ethan was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you something?" he said. She looked at him. "When I was 16, I had a car accident. Nothing serious. I was fine. The other driver was fine. But for about a year after that, every time I got in a car, my hands would shake. Every time. Didn't matter if I was just going to the grocery store. My body remembered what my brain was trying to forget." He paused, and the only way I got through it was, I just kept getting in the car. Every day, shaking hands and all. Because I knew that if I stopped, the fear would just get bigger. Vera looked at him for a long time. "You are comparing 300 years of grief to a car accident," she said. "I'm comparing the principle," he said, "not the scale." She was quiet. "I'm not saying you have to go," he said. "I'm saying, if you decide to go, you won't be going alone. The Alliance will be there. Voss will be there." He paused. "I'll be there. You are a junior soldier. You would not be in that room. I'll be outside the door," he said. "That counts." She looked at him. And for the first time in 400 years, Vera felt something she had almost forgotten the name of. Not hope exactly. Something quieter than hope. Something more careful. The feeling that maybe, just maybe, she did not have to carry everything alone anymore. She did not say yes that night, but 3 days later, she walked into Commander Voss's office and told her she would attend the summit. Voss looked at her for a long moment. "What changed your mind?" she asked. Vera considered the question. "Someone reminded me," she said, "that the only way through is through." The summit was held on Neutral Station Kepler 9, a small diplomatic outpost at the intersection of 3 territorial boundaries. It was the kind of place that existed specifically for moments like this. Carefully neutral, carefully monitored, carefully designed to make everyone equally uncomfortable so that nobody had an advantage. The Alliance delegation arrived first. Commander Voss led it. 3 senior diplomats, 2 military advisors, a translation AI, and Vera, walking at the back of the group, her wings folded tight, her face completely still. Ethan was outside the door. He had been assigned to the security detail, a last-minute addition that Harlow had arranged with a quiet word to the right people. He stood in the corridor with Torres and Briggs and 4 other soldiers, watching the door to the summit chamber. Inside, the Vorkai delegation arrived. There were 5 of them. They were tall and angular, with pale gray skin and eyes that were completely black. They moved with the particular kind of deliberate grace that predators have, every movement precise, nothing wasted. The lead Vorkai diplomat was named Skarath. He was old even by Vorkai standards. He had been alive during the war. He had been alive when the resonance pulse was deployed. He looked at Vera when he entered the room. She looked back at him. The room was very quiet. Commander Voss began the formal opening. Diplomatic language. Procedural statements. The careful architecture of official communication designed to create structure around situations that have no natural structure. Vera sat still. She could feel the Vorkai. Their biosignatures were distinctive, cold and sharp, like the feeling of metal in winter. She had not felt that particular sensation in 300 years. It moved through her awareness like a blade. She kept her walls up. She breathed. She focused on the table in front of her. She thought about a young human from Ohio who had sat down at her table because he was hungry and there was an empty seat. She stayed. The summit lasted 4 hours. It was not easy. The Vorkai were not apologetic, they never would be, not directly, not in any language that could be quoted or recorded. But Scareth at one point looked at Vera and said something in the old diplomatic tongue that the translation AI rendered as, "The past cannot be undone. The future can be shaped." It was not an apology. But it was something. The boundary agreement was signed. New terms. New monitoring protocols. A framework for communication that had not existed before. It was not peace. Not fully. Not yet. But it was the beginning of something that might, over time, become peace. When the delegation walked out of the summit chamber, Ethan was the first person Vera saw. He was standing by the door, still in his security position, hands clasped behind his back, doing his best to look professional. When he saw her, he gave her the same small nod he had given her on that very first morning in the mess hall. She stopped in front of him. "It went well?" he asked quietly. "It went," she said. He nodded. "That's enough." She looked at him for a moment. "Yes," she said. "It is." They walked back to the transport together. The ancient alien vampire woman who had survived the death of her entire world, and the rookie human from a small town in Ohio, who had sat down at the wrong table and accidentally changed everything. Behind them, Commander Voss watched them go. She had been in the Alliance for 30 years. She had seen a lot of things. She had seen wars end and begin. She had seen species meet for the first time and species say goodbye for the last time. She had never seen anything quite like this. A 400-year-old being who had been alone for 3 centuries, walking beside a 22-year-old human who had no idea he was doing anything remarkable. Just walking. Just talking. Just together. Voss thought about what Harlow had said weeks ago. He doesn't know he's supposed to be afraid of her. She thought about all the decorated soldiers and experienced commanders and brilliant diplomats who had walked the long way around for 60 years. She thought about a rookie with bad hair and purple toast crumbs on his uniform who had simply sat down. And she thought, not for the first time and not for the last, that sometimes the most extraordinary things in the universe happen not because someone was brave enough to act, but because someone was open enough not to hesitate. Here is the thing nobody talks about. After the summit, something changed on Omega 7. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, quietly, the way real change always happens. Other soldiers started sitting near Vera's table. Not at it, not at first, but near it. 1 table over, 2 tables over. Close enough that the invisible boundary that had existed for 60 years began, very gradually, to dissolve. A young Cathali soldier asked Vera a question about ancient star maps one morning. She answered. A human diplomat stopped to thank her for her role in the summit. She acknowledged it. A Dravari cultural researcher, one of the other survivors, living on a distant station, sent her a message for the first time in 40 years. She replied. None of these things were large. All of them were enormous. And Ethan just kept showing up every morning with his tray and his coffee and his questions. He asked about Dravari history, about the star system her family had ruled, about what the shared consciousness had felt like before it was gone. He asked carefully, gently, the way you ask about something precious and broken, not to pry, but because you genuinely want to understand. And Vera told him, piece by piece, morning by morning. She told him about her mother, who had been a navigator and had known the position of every star in the galaxy by memory. She told him about her brother, who had been a healer and had laughed too loudly at his own jokes. She told him about the homeworld, the colors of the sky, the sound of the wind through the crystal forests, the way the shared consciousness had felt like being held by everyone you had ever loved. All at once. Always. She had not spoken these things out loud in 300 years. She had kept them inside. Perfectly preserved. Perfectly silent. Because there had been no one to tell them to. Now there was. And here is the twist that nobody saw coming. 6 months after the summit, the Alliance Council received a second communication from the Vorkai. Not a diplomatic message this time. A personal one. Addressed specifically to Vera. It was from Scareth. In it, he told her something that had been kept secret for 300 years. Something that the Vorkai leadership had suppressed, had buried in classified records, had never allowed to be spoken publicly. The resonance pulse, the weapon that had killed her people, had not been a military decision. It had been a rogue action, carried out by a faction within the Vorkai military without the knowledge or authorization of the Vorkai government. The government had known afterward. They had covered it up. They had let the official history record it as a wartime action, rather than face the consequences of what had actually happened. Scareth had been a junior official at the time. He had known the truth for 300 years. He had carried it for 300 years. He was telling her now because he was old. Because he was dying. Because he had sat across from her at that summit table and looked into her silver eyes and understood, for the first time in 3 centuries, the full weight of what had been done and what had been hidden. He was not asking for forgiveness. He was giving her the truth. Because she deserved it. Vera read the message alone in her quarters. Then she went to the mess hall. She sat at her table. She waited. Ethan arrived at his usual time, tray in hand, slightly rumpled, coffee already half finished. He sat down. He looked at her face, really looked, the way he had learned to look over months of morning conversations, and he knew immediately that something had happened. "What is it?" he asked. She told him. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "How do you feel? Not what does this mean? Not what are you going to do? Not this changes everything. Just how do you feel?" Vera looked at him. "I do not know yet," she said honestly. "I have been carrying one version of this story for 300 years. Now I have a different version. I need time to understand what it means, to decide what to do with it." "That makes sense," Ethan said. "It does not make the loss smaller," she said. "They are still gone. The truth of how it happened does not bring them back." "No," he said. "It doesn't, but," she paused. "It changes something. I have spent 300 years believing that my people were destroyed by a species that chose to destroy them. Deliberately. Completely. That is, a particular kind of grief. A particular kind of anger." She looked at her hands. "This is different. This is a crime committed by a faction. Hidden by a government. Carried in secret by one old man for 3 centuries. She was quiet. "It is still a crime. It is still a loss. But it is more complicated. More human, perhaps." Ethan smiled slightly at that. "More human. You are a complicated species," she said. "You do terrible things. And then sometimes, very late, you tell the truth about them." "Yeah," he said. "We do." She looked at him. "You came and sat at my table," she said. "On your first morning. By accident." "By accident," he confirmed. "And because of that, I went to the summit. And because I went to the summit, Scareth saw me. And because he saw me, he told me the truth." She paused. 300 years of silence, ended by a rookie who did not know which table to avoid. Ethan looked at her. "Does that bother you? That it was an accident?" She considered this seriously, the way she considered everything. "No," she said finally. "The greatest things are often accidents. Stars are accidents. Life is an accident. Perhaps it is fitting that this was too." Ethan nodded slowly. "What are you going to do with the information?" he asked. "I am going to make it public," she said. "The Alliance Council. The historical record. The truth, properly documented, properly acknowledged." She paused. "It will not undo what was done. But it will mean that my people's story is told correctly. that the record shows what actually happened. She looked at him. They deserve that. They deserve to be remembered truly. Ethan was quiet for a moment. They will be, he said. She looked at him for a long time. Ethan Cole, she said. His full name, spoken in her precise, careful voice. You sat at my table because you were hungry and there was an empty seat. That's about the size of it, he said. You have no idea what you have done. He smiled. I had breakfast. You gave me back the world, she said quietly. The mess hall hummed around them. Soldiers ate and talked and laughed. The stars moved slowly past the viewports. The station turned in the dark, and at the corner table that had been empty for 60 years, an ancient alien vampire woman and a rookie human from Ohio sat together in the morning light, and the silence between them was not the silence of fear or isolation or 300 years of grief. It was the silence of two people who had found, in the most accidental way possible, exactly what they needed. If this opened your eyes to what one small, genuine act of openness can do, stay with us, because the next story goes even deeper. Let's bring it all together. Vera had been alone for 300 years. Not because she was dangerous, not because she was cruel, but because everyone around her had decided, based on fear and legend and second-hand stories, that she was unapproachable, and so she sat alone. And the silence grew, and the distance became permanent. Until one rookie, one completely unaware, slightly clumsy, genuinely open human being, sat down because he was hungry. That one moment unlocked 300 years of silence. It led to a diplomatic summit that prevented a war. It led to a truth being told that had been buried for 3 centuries. It led to a 400-year-old being finally beginning to heal. The second thing this story shows us is that the most powerful thing you can bring into any room is not strength or status or experience. It is openness. Genuine, unperforming, unafraid openness. Vera could read emotions. She had felt fear from every soldier on that station for 60 years. What she had never felt, what she had almost forgotten existed, was someone who simply showed up as themselves. Without armor, without agenda, without fear. That is what changed everything. And the third thing, the one that hits hardest, is that truth has a way of finding its moment. Scareth carried his secret for 300 years. He might have carried it to his grave. But he sat across from Vera at that summit table, and he looked into her eyes, and he could not carry it anymore. The truth came out because 2 people were finally in the same room. Because a rookie sat at the wrong table. Because one small accident set off a chain of events that nobody could have planned. Sometimes the universe works like that. Sometimes the most important thing you will ever do is the thing you did without thinking. Now here is what we want to know from you. If you were on that station, if you had been eating breakfast in that mess hall for years, walking the long way around, following the unwritten rule, would you have sat down? Tell us in the comments. Seriously. We read every single one, and if this story hit you the way we think it did, if you felt something in Vera's 300 years of silence, or in Ethan's completely accidental bravery, then hit that like button. It takes 1 second and it helps this story reach more people who need to hear it. Subscribe to Hate-Fi Sci-Fi for new stories every week. Stories about humans doing the unexpected. Stories about connection across impossible distances. Stories about what happens when someone decides, accidentally or on purpose, to simply show up. And if you want to go deeper right now, the next video is already waiting for you. It is another Hafey story. Another human. Another impossible situation. Another moment where everything changes because of one person who refused to look away. Click it. You will not regret it. We will see you in the next one.